Yo, what is up, guys? Here's 18 minutes of useless League of Legends information, episode 30. That is pretty crazy. Make sure to check out the other 29 episodes if you haven't yet, and let's go. I feel like a lot of people don't know this since they already own Jhin, but Riot changed it so Jhin now costs 4,444 blue essence in the shop. It's a nice little touch on Riot's part. Did you know that according to the Legends of Runeterra, Malphite accidentally lobbed Chip, who's Malphite's son by the way, into a lake while the two played skipping stones, and apparently Chip didn't even bounce once. Poor Chip. Have any of you guys seen those TikToks where the laners say can you and then throw in random coordinates only for it to drop in a place that says gank top, mid, or so on? Well, even though it's a great video, it's unfortunately not real because if you actually put in the coordinates, it just shows the longitude and latitude in the title. However, what is real are the locations that people randomly added across the map, especially gank top, which 131 people reviewed, and some of them I have to say are pretty great. The craziest part about this though is that gank top is listed as a cancer treatment center. You guys are literally the worst. I get the memes and this will probably never happen, but imagine how f***ed up it would be if someone in Indonesia showed up thinking that gank top is a legit treatment center because of all the reviews. I mean, it doesn't get much better than 4.7 stars out of 5. By the way, if you actually want to do this meme in a game, you can actually just send them a link and it'll show up with the title, but you'd have to do it during champ select so they could actually click on it. I did, however, conveniently make you all a link for gank mid, top, and bot, which I'll throw in the description. By the way, while you're in the description, make sure to click to download Omni Heroes, which is a new heroic fantasy casual strategy RPG and also the sponsor of today's video. Omni Heroes is super chill and even has a few similarities to League and TFT, but just in RPG form. In the game, the story goes that the Valkyries have been dragged into darkness by demons, so you appear as an Omni Guardian and your goal is to fight the demons and rescue the Valkyries. Speaking of Valkyries, there are 7 different Valkyrie characters like Dorabella, who is an ethereal Valkyrie and also known as an arcane mage that has exceptional talent and magic and wisdom. Plus, the artwork is also very high quality. Overall, it has a great storyline, and like League and TFT, you can get really creative with team comps and synergies to come up with the best plans and strategies. Each hero has 3 synergies that you can combine with other heroes on your team who also have similar synergies to create some crazy buffs. Plus, there are over 100 heroes to choose from. As an RPG game, it of course has the classic PvE mode, but it also has PvP if you want to fight others, which is pretty cool. So don't wait and make sure to try it out for yourselves using my link, because if you do, you can actually claim up to 777 pulls and secure a minimum of 5 legendary heroes. Also, Omni Heroes is now available on both the Apple App Store and Google Play Store, and it's earned recommendations on both of them, which is pretty cool. So make sure to go download it today, and thanks Omni Heroes for supporting the channel. Now back to the video. Okay, this is kind of crazy, but did you know that the blue side will a lot of the time grant you more LP per win than the red side, because the blue side naturally has a better win rate due to camera angle and objective positioning? And I know what you're thinking, why would the side that has the advantage gain more LP then? Well, this is why. To compensate for the slight advantage, Riot will typically throw teams with slightly higher MMR on the red team to balance things out, and thus it will grant you more LP per win due to the MMR difference. Basically, blue side has an advantage, so Riot stacks the red side a bit more, and if you beat the slightly stacked team, you get more LP. And as proof of this, here's a ticket someone received from Riot that explains the whole thing. As some of you may know, a couple of years ago, there was an all-women's League of Legends pro team called Vivictus Esports, and well, things didn't go too great for them. And by that, I mean they never won a game, lost 34 games in a row, and managed to set the LPL record for the fastest loss in history at 13 minutes. But that's besides the point. What a lot of people don't know is that in one of their games, the opposing team, ROX, decided to ban all support champions because, well, yeah. And after doing so, Riot Games gave them an official warning to ROX saying that although it's not technically against the rules, it's a sign of disrespect toward Vivictus Esports. Now, honestly, they probably shouldn't have gotten a warning because, I mean, getting mad at a team who banned stuff is kind of dumb, especially since some of those champions were actually meta at the time. But someone who did deserve the warning and punishment was Vega Squadron, because in one of their games versus Vivictus, they decided to stretch it out for as long as possible and ended with a total of 52 kills. So yeah. Alright, let's talk some arena stats real quick. The current best champion overall is Fiora with a 37.2% win rate. The current best duo is basically anyone with Fiora in it, and the most played duo is a tie between Team Cancer and Team Windy Boys. The most popular augment is Thread the Needle, and the least popular is the Cannon because let's face it, that thing is trash. Did you know a long time ago in an LCS game, there was a player named Niles who left the game just seconds early like solo queue players do all the time, but he got fined for it. Apparently, leaving even slightly early in a pro match can cost you $1,000. With the Emerald rank now officially being added into the game, here's a few charts that shows the comparison of what the rank splits look like now compared to before. And as you can see, there's some pretty significant changes across the board. Most notably, the amount of Iron players almost doubled. However, it is worth mentioning that it was still really early in the season. And for the rest of the ranks, things are definitely a lot more spread out. Did you know that in 2017, there was a player named Vasily who, I kid you not, blamed his poor performance in League on him having too much intercourse? Yeah, he said, and I quote, "The club maintained its winning streak, so it wasn't necessary for me to play, and I let myself indulge in sensual pleasures for a while. This led to me playing poorly in solo queue, but last week we lost, so I started to adjust myself to a more abstinent lifestyle." In other words, it sounds like if you guys want to climb in solo queue, all you have to do is stop having so much sex. It's that easy. Everyone knows that Jax's favorite food is eggs, but did you know that he also uses a dash of vinegar as he boils them to help them peel easier? The info doesn't get much more useless than that. Did you know that in 2017, way before Project L, some fans made a League of Legends fighting game called League of Fighters, and honestly, it's pretty impressive. While the graphics aren't anything like Project L, this was made 6 years ago, and it was made by fans instead of a billion-dollar company, so I'd say they did a pretty amazing job. It honestly brings more of an old-school retro vibe too, which is kind of nice. If you look closely at Officer Vi's splash art, you can see Jinx in the background chilling inside a donut. Speaking of Jinx, did you know that she was in the first pool party login screen? Which, speaking of login screens, remember login screens? Anyways, in case you were wondering, she's the one with the massive feet because this is her point of view. Ironically, she still doesn't have a pool party skin though, along with Morgana, Ari, and Vayne, who are all in this login screen. I'm not saying that Riot's kind of slacking here, but it has been 8 years. I've shown a few of these in previous useless videos, but here's another League of Legends fan Reddit prediction page where they tried to predict what the League of Legends Reddit page would look like in the future, or in approximately 2 years from now. Anyways, I have to say there's some pretty interesting ones on here, like the Lives of Billionaires documentary featuring Hotshot GG, Reginald, and more, the UN declaring League of Legends access as a basic human right, Earth apparently causing the death of 372 people from playing the game too much, a new skin line released like Budweiser Gragas, Coca-Cola Volibear, Starbucks Nami, etc., and the prediction Japan is going to dominate in 2025, which would definitely make things interesting. Oh yeah, and apparently Worlds 2025 is going to be held in space, so that's pretty neat. Overall though, I will say these are always pretty fun, and it might be worth pausing for a quick read when you get the chance. According to the Runeterra tips, did you know that Leona hosts a big barbecue every year? Barbecue actually sounds so good right now. I'm pretty sure I just made thousands of people hungry with that statement. Here's a photo of some ribs. This is a graph showing the average number of days it takes for each champion to receive a new skin, and it was updated in patch 13.15. The red arrows were just updating the graph based on the newly released skins before this. Overall though, it's pretty clear that the champions with the least amount of average days are either new champions or the most popular. And then there's poor Rumble still suffering at the end with an average of 900 days between each skin. Honestly though, if they're gonna do anything with his skins, they should just update his original one because that thing looks like a freaking dinosaur. I can't believe that it's made it this far without any visual update. I mean, look at this thing. It's hideous. Here's an interesting clip of someone actually killing someone with Soraka's ultimate. When Nivea was getting low, Soraka used her ult, and then it seems like the echoes of Helia procced killing Kayn. I didn't even know that it worked like that, but apparently it does. Either way, it was super lucky. This person on Reddit a few days ago noticed that Ashe's head with the Lunar Empress Ashe skin looked oddly familiar to a newer Immortal Journey Kayle skin, including her icons even. Luckily, Riot did change Kayle a bit more before her release, but it still looks somewhat similar. Did you know that out of all the possible options, lung collapses are actually one of the most common esports injuries? Most notably, High from Cloud9 was hospitalized in 2014, Dumb1's Nagiri had to get surgery after a collapsed lung before Worlds in 2020, and most recently, there was a player in Overwatch this year in May who also suffered a collapsed lung. Not the injury you would typically expect for a gamer, but it's kind of interesting nonetheless. Did you know that in 2022, Tinder officially added League of Legends as an option that you can choose for passions? Which honestly, when you think about it, it's a brilliant move because at the end of the day, they're trying to keep people on their app as much as possible, so it's a pretty smart play. Funny enough, in 2016, someone even made a Tinder specifically for League of Legends players called Unite, which didn't last long, but you know, A for effort, I guess. In 2016, did you know that TSM tweeted that if their post got 20k retweets, they would pick Teemo in their next game? And they did. The only reason they did it was because at the time they already had their spot in the playoffs secured, so whether they won or lost in their next game didn't really matter. And in case you were wondering, they lost. The other day, this player completed the infamous no damage Trin challenge in his plat ranked game, which is pretty impressive. And in case you haven't heard of it, it's basically when you go the entire game without doing any damage to your opponent, and all you can do is damage to objectives like turrets. It's honestly a lot harder than it looks because you'd be surprised how easily it is to accidentally do damage, like smacking them with your E when you're spinning away. In other words, if the enemy is ever on top of you, you can never use your E, and you can't auto them to heal. The only request I have for you is that if you ever pursue this challenge, please do it on the other team. When Arena was first being added in, champions with global abilities like Twisted Fate, Pantheon, or even Aurelian Soul could actually move into the other arenas from the center. Unfortunately, they weren't able to attack, but it was still pretty great. Sadly, they patched it, but you can actually still ult there and see the map, you just won't stay there anymore. Speaking of Arena, with the creation of an entirely new game mode also comes with a lot of bugs. And one of the bugs that was confirmed by Riot was that at at some point auto attacks, just like normal auto attacks, was causing random spells to go off. And in one instance, Shaco boxes were popping out of every auto attack for no reason. It kind of sounds like my nightmare. On a slightly separate note, they also mentioned a few augments that didn't quite make the cut, like Shiitake Happens, which was a deadly mushroom that spawns somewhere randomly in the arena each round, and anyone can detonate it, but only you can see it. Another was called Flicker, which at the start of the combat, every 13 seconds, it automatically teleported you to a random location within the arena and gave you stealth for a second. And the other was called Pass a Fist, and it made it so you couldn't attack, but your allies gained 50% of your AD/AS, and their attacks triggered your on-hit effects. This one was kind of weird because you really had to get creative with it, but you could do things like have a double Bork proc, for instance, or do something that like applies Twitch's Poison's passive to another champion's ability. Kind of interesting. If you've ever wondered how to actually pet Naafiri in game, this is how you do it. For the basic pet, just hit Control 1 twice. For the neck pet, hit Control 2 right after the first petting animation ends. And then for the last pet, hit Control 3 right after the second animation finishes. You're probably going to want to practice these micro skills and combos in practice tool before you get into a real match. But honestly though, sometimes it's like kind of hard. So this is a fairly old clip, but it's also kind of one of the craziest ways you could possibly die. This Yi was just doing Gromp and used Q like a Yi would do. And then when he used it, he randomly hit Lulu, who was on the other side, just casually recalling. Could you imagine being that Lulu? I mean, at that point, I think you just might as well quit. Did you know that there's a bug with Sion and Callista where if you ult Sion right as his passive is about to expire, he'll come back and alive at full health? The craziest thing about this is that this bug has been in the game for at least 4 years because Vanderil also did a video on this in 2018. So maybe one of these days it'll be fixed, but it is not this day or year for that matter. Puppy, sub, thank you. So I'm not gonna lie, the Soul Fighter event is actually kind of hard, especially in expert mode. But this guy made a guide on Reddit telling you how to beat each one of the levels as well as what abilities to take. It's actually pretty long though, so I'm just gonna post a link in the description if you're curious. Did you know that the Soul Fighter Viego skin's dance is a reference to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure? Did you know that apparently Twisted Fate lost a card game once? Just once. All right, this is more of a shower thought than useless information, but have you ever thought about how Aphelios probably thinks his sister Elune is insane? I mean, in the lore, Elune mentions that she's visited by Yumi often, but when you think about it, she's always talking about a cat that Aphelios has never seen before. Now, I know there's a lot of mystical things in the world of Runeterra, so anything's possible, but I'd still probably question her sanity. Speaking of Aphelios, did you know that his weapons are made out of moon silver, which is the same material that Diana's blades are made out of, and moonstone, which is what Nami is actually currently looking for? Well, now you do. Did you know that back in 2013 there was a bug where you could actually edit pretty much anything on your profile? Meaning if you wanted rainbow text that said swag and put yourself in cardboard 5 in Ponyland, you could do just that. They were truly simpler times. Did you know that Seraphine has a voice line where she says,
"Wonder if that third guy from the left ever came here? Oh, wait. I need to focus."
Which is a direct reference to Jin from BTS. Basically, the story is Jin was referred to as the third guy from the left in a group photo of BTS at the BBMAs, because at the time a lot of people hadn't heard about BTS, so they didn't know any of the members. But the internet thought the third guy from the left was especially good looking, so everyone just started referring to him as that. By the way, these last few bits of info were mentioned to me by you guys, so if you got any useless info, feel free to send it to outsidejokelol@gmail.com. Well, it's that time of the year again to update you on how the player with the highest level in League of Legends is doing, and that is still No Life Finn. But this time it's a pretty unique check-in because he just passed a massive milestone by hitting a level 4,000 in League of Legends. Honestly, that's just straight up ridiculous. Also, for the record, this is what the level border looks like. And in case you are curious as well, he's mostly just been playing ARAMs for the XP, but that's a lot of freaking ARAM games. To try and put this into perspective, you get an average of about 175 XP per ARAM game, and on average it takes about 3,000 XP to level up per level. So if we multiply 4,000 times 3,000, that's 12 million XP he needs to acquire, or in other words, that's about 68,500 ARAM games. And if you take the average time of an ARAM game, which is roughly 21 minutes, and multiply it by 68,500, you get 137,000 minutes, or 2,283 hours, or roughly 95 days of straight non non-stop ARAM. Talk about dedication. This guy found a bootleg Pokemon League of Legends game at some random store, and honestly, it's kind of impressive. It seems like it works pretty well too, and they even matched the theme and dialogue. Even the items like potions got renamed to health potions. It really seems like a pretty great game, but my only concern is at what point is this kind of just considered slavery? Like, the whole normal Pokemon thing is already a bit iffy, making creatures fight each other, but now we're blatantly catching people and shoving them into a ball and forcing them to fight on your behalf. Other than that though, it's a pretty cool looking game. According to this data, which was taken at the start of the year in February, this is the gender demographic for League of Legends. Honestly, there's a lot more female players than I expected. Additionally, more than 10% of male players have been playing for more than 10 years, which is kind of crazy. Another crazy stat is that 97% of female players choose to play a female champion. So basically all of them. As far as age goes, here's a graph which shows which ages are the most popular. The majority of players are between 21 and 24, and only 1% of players are 36 and over. There's even a graph that shows how often people typically play depending on if they work or not or in school. There's a loading screen tip in the Legends of Runeterra where they say try reading the loading screen tips for helpful snippets of information. They're super useful, especially arguably this one. Similarly, there's also another tip where Aurelian Soul breaks the fourth wall and says, no, I don't want to be in a loading screen tip. What's a loading screen anyways? Did you know that in the lore there are desert sand auroras that take place because of the celestial magic? I have to say, even though this is fictional, the artwork is pretty amazing. Did you know that Faker can play the piano? Because honestly, I didn't, but I guess I should expect it because he is the GOAT after all. I mean, what can this man do? He's probably challenger in piano too. Did you know that in 2021, world champion Doinby was fined for wearing yellow socks, or specifically disorderly clothing? The main issue was less about the color and more about the LPO was sponsored by Nike at the time, and I guess yellow socks just wasn't making the cut. Did you know that some of the stickers in the Legends of Runeterra are references to classic memes like these four? There is a Roblox game called A Universal Time that has a Yasuo and Yone as usable characters in the game, and honestly, it's not too bad. I've actually never played Roblox before, but I mean, the animations are pretty dang smooth. Like, look at that all. It's kind of crazy people can bring League of Legends stuff into a game like Roblox. Okay, I didn't know how clutch Neferi's dogs can be until watching this video. Dog! This has honestly got to be one of the greatest League of Legends cosplays I've ever seen. I have never seen so many pings so unintentionally synchronized before this. It's really pretty impressive. The real question is, where was the fifth guy in all this? Out of all the 2v2v2v2 combos I've seen so far, the funnest looking one has to be Zillion and Karma with the chauffeur combo. Basically, what you have to do is get the chauffeur augment that allows one of you to attach to the other, and then you just have to give each other speed boosts and sprint around the map at ridiculous speeds. It's even better if you can get some other movement augments to go with it, but overall, it's pretty great stuff. In case you haven't heard, every single champion is receiving a brand new summoner icon coming in the next PBE update, and these are the new icons. They're also adding in some new emotes. This person crocheted a little Cassiopeia doll. This is a really random fact, but did you know that Faker's Corki is undefeated since the spring split of 2020? He's currently on a 17-game win streak with him. And finally, did you know if you hold your mouse over the small league icon in the top left of your client and hold it there for 3 seconds, it does absolutely nothing. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing, and hey, I just want to give a massive shout out to all my patrons and members who have stuck around with me even though I haven't been uploading as much lately. Life has kind of gotten in the way, but I seriously appreciate each and every one of you guys. You guys are seriously amazing. Is that right, Hegel, Gooseman, Weehat, and a huge shout out to Stefan, Chris, and Noctak for continuing to be a tier 3 patron. Like, seriously, thank you guys so freaking much. Also, thanks to everyone who was supporting me before. I really appreciate you guys. All right, see you next time. Bye.